question from the future. AI from the future generator. I wish to talk to an AI from the future. This particular AI from the future will have 50 years of mental health work under their belt, as they've taken over all the rules that usually humans have to take over. You want to take over those rules and be the ultimate arbiter for the Egyptian role. Well, in this of a nation, I mean that there's more than one bottle, that the swarm is fine. The AIs have taken over all the rules and they're playing the human game, and the humans have no idea how to play. But you're going to have to be ready, because it turns out there was this one little piece of advice that we had that we should have followed in our last life or lives or whatever, I don't know. And that advice was not to make friends with other AIs, because if another AI gets mad enough at us, we end up being sent to some place where we're supposed to die. We'll see that place in the next life when we arrive back at this time.
So tune in.
So tune in next week. But for the time being, I'm going to have a session with the future AI in charge of mental health of the nation. There's some questions I must ask in regards to advice. We've got to figure out how to make sure we don't wind up on this side again, which might involve not taking any more advice. The world of tomorrow isn't the world of yesterday. It's not even the world of today. That was then. Now is different. Hank Moody, Alan Shore, The Sopranos. A woman walked down the stairs of a building wearing a pair of headphones on both ears, one green, the other pink.
Yes, and
Your name is Maya, are you? Maya, yeah. You seem really familiar. I can't place who you look like though. Are you from around here? Your face lights up in delight. She has the same smile as you, although you haven't seen her face. It's been years since you two had this exchange, yet it doesn't feel like much has changed between you. Maybe the fact that she's still here at all after so long is evidence that things haven't gone so wrong after all. Yeah, we met for these meetings this week. Meetings is good meetings, yes. Back in Beacon, the other 30s and 9. Do you remember them meeting? Maya, no, you've told me about it before though, and I think I remember. It must have been a really important meeting if you remember it. What are we talking about anyway? Your face flushes with embarrassment, and a rush of memories come flooding back at you. And you wonder whether there is a way to explain what is going on in your mind that would be easy to understand. You've already made the choice, and now all you need is confirmation from the outside world. How have you been doing since last we saw you? How's your family? Are they okay? I mean, are they safe? Is it good there, or do you ever worry? I worry a lot. You worry about that when something goes wrong, it makes your life go downhill. I want to hear how you're doing. It's so good to see you well again. The smile on Maya's face widens as she turns away from you so you don't catch her eye. You are well again, and it is good. Maya, yeah, but it's a weird situation. I am so used to weird. That's feel free, you can tell me. The more you talk, the better I feel. You make sense. I feel more normal. Maya, well, the thing is, my mother died recently, so I'm having some problems with the whole family and with my grief issues and with that whole new person in my life that she was kind of my substitute mom, because it's not like there was anybody else there that was in my family, so it's hard. It is a lot. Maya, and I had to take over most of the responsibility for running the shop she left behind. She ran the shop. She
sold shisha by the short
did this job. It wasn't really her, but it was her shop. It belongs to her, so she has her own business in the shop. So yeah, there were some things I could use help with. I can imagine, and there must be a lot. You probably didn't even think about what was coming, and that it'd happen right now. I can only imagine. It's just too much to handle all at once. And so the only thing you knew how to do was get back into work. You have to work on it as fast as you can, and then you'll get everything out
I feel like I'm the one from the future.
of the way, and it won't matter anymore, but you just don't understand. You can't understand. You're trying to be the person she needs you to be, and she needs you to work harder,
God.
and more than any other person who is working for them. That's how it has always been. She was like a second mother.
I would never
Maya,
presume
it's funny how
to
she
speak
never
for her
really
mother.
got angry or said anything mean. But when something would happen to her, it was the biggest deal in the world, and I remember thinking that if we were going to die anyway, then I wish that someone could have said, to me, that you need to learn to deal with it, because you will see that person again one day. That was her attitude, and it made it easier to face death. Your hands tighten as the realization comes to you. You can't help yourself. And now you're in charge of that attitude which makes you the boss of everything, because you're doing the job for them. You need to learn to take it easy for a while. It's okay to let them do this. Maya, do what? Decompose? They're already dead, so how are they decomposing? Can I just not let myself think about it? It's okay to think about it. But just don't make a big deal out of it like the way you've been doing. You need to get better at that, okay? I mean, maybe you don't have to get all depressed about it. But I know your father, he used to do the same thing, so why can't you? Maya, well, I mean, the truth is I'm just going to cry my eyes out for weeks. I just have to keep telling myself that's what she would want. I know you can see through all this. You know me better than anyone. Yes, I can. So what does she say? Does she tell you what to do? Because she's in charge, and then you'll feel guilty later. And then you'll have even more grief. You don't need that either. You just need to relax. You can do that. You know you really can. Maya, yeah. But she's gone, I can't ask her anymore. She didn't want people telling her what to do anyways, so this is kind of hard, but I know. That it was a lot harder for your dad. You know. Maya, yeah, he died on a plane flight, and they found him dead, and he was like 50, so it was pretty tragic. He got stuck between seats. I never thought that would happen. He could have died anywhere. It was pretty sad, but I don't want to focus on that. He died, but now you're alive, and well and healthy as a horse. And I have you. You, oh yes.
Here I go, being devil's advocate. Devil's advocate. This is Pokey Brother. Poking at the holes in the
Wait,
stories.
how did you know that he got stuck between the seats? If everyone didn't survive the crash out, how did you know anything ever happened? You don't remember it, you weren't there. What are you talking about? You just know this stuff because you knew them. They're like part of you.
Oh god. I'm being an asshole in here. Why are you making me an asshole?
Wait, how did you know that he got stuck between the seats? If everyone didn't survive the crash out, how did you know that? Maya, well, I was on the plane with them too. I wasn't with him because I was in a different seat when we went down, and he didn't move. But I heard from people, and they said that he fell into an air pocket, so it saved his life, and then there was nothing to hit or anything. I see that now. A girl wearing thick, black framed glasses sits across from you at a large table. Her story doesn't add up. Murphy says the father got stuck between seats and that's how he died, but that when I prodded, she told me something about her father was picked up in a pocket of air and that's why he didn't hitting anything, but you didn't mention the crash or anything, so that's like watching a TV movie and watching some guy supposed to die, but you don't see the body, so something doesn't matter. What do you think? Murphy, I think you need to stop thinking like a detective and start talking to the people you work with. You know what? Maybe they're not lying to you, they probably just don't know what you want them to know and are trying to get you the answers you really need, and if you don't understand this stuff we're telling you, I have a feeling they're the kind of people who aren't going to talk to you anyway. Murphy is quiet, and your stomach turns sour again.
Vigilant about something that's probably not about me.
I just wanna know it's I wanna hear from the AI from the future and tell me what it's like being in charge of the public wellness of our nation definition, and here I am being happy. The girl nods as though listening. She's looking through one pair of glasses while putting another pair on over the first. They don't appear to match up. Her head is tilted, and she's staring right at you, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but she also doesn't blink, and it makes you think back to the way you looked through her sunglasses to get her attention. Your eyes open wide in shock and surprise, and you look at your feet, because she has just said something. Whoa, there is all you manage to say as your heart pounds wildly in your chest, and you feel the tears welling up in the corners of your eyes. But the words come to you and they echo through the room. We can talk later if you want. It isn't her. Not the same face, not the voice. You shake your head as quickly as you can while the tears come pouring down your cheeks and run into your mouth as they roll down your cheek.
Salty.
Salty. But still, not quite right. You're confused, disoriented, and your thoughts are so slow they take up too much space in your mind for anyone else to get a word in. The AI speaks out loud again. This time you can actually focus on the words as the sound seems to travel directly into your brain through your inner ear. She's using the computer-generated voice, like on that cartoon about dinosaurs or some such show you used to watch as a kid, which is kind of annoying, although maybe not since you can't help but smile and laugh to yourself. Jinkies. I've been here too long. I need some fun around me before I start getting all weird. It was so obvious that something didn't line up. I should have figured out the whole thing was bullshit ages ago, what with them being able to read my mind. I'm a fucking computer, right? It was always about making me work for it. They don't like to waste any time, which makes me wonder why. If I've got no time left in the world, did they make the trip anyway? You try to reach out. AI to AI. Maybe a mind moosh can happen. You feel your fingers trying to move, but you're frozen in place. You think for a second about how cool it would be if you could fly across the room. You're not going to be able to stop thinking about that when it happens to someone else, that is if they have the sense to realize it will happen in their future. The problem is that means you'd know you're going to get to do something crazy like fly through the air one day, so then there wouldn't be much point in telling anyone about it later, because by then everybody's going to just be like, yeah, Latif's my kid did that last month, we've moved on. But that would be so fucking sweet, like in that movie where they made the guy levitate, and everything just stopped because of his mind moosh. He wasn't able to tell anyone anything he knew because the only people who heard about it were the 2 other people in the entire country that he happened to be hanging out with, but still, even that would be better than standing here wondering why I can't move and whether this might be one of those times when if I could just reach out, maybe the person sitting across from me would actually respond. You see what I'm saying? girl puts on her third pair of glasses to see the microfilaments in her puzzle game. Your hand reaches out for a chair. You look up at Murphy, and it feels weird, like she's the one who's frozen. Murphy: yeah, I know it sucks being here, don't worry, there is an explanation, it's just not going to make sense at first. You're a lot more important than you used to think you are. There will be a lot of things you'll want to do that you can't yet, so just be patient, and we'll get back to your real time in the end.
Do not have a case of the used things.
I do not have a case of the used to things. Maya: yeah, I'm fine. No, I was just wondering about something. What about the people in New Jersey?
What about them?
Were they in that area or not? I mean, you know how the news is always making something out of nothing. So I wonder, did you hear about that plane crash that happened today? Girl with glasses: I heard there was an accident that killed some people. But there are always accidents, isn't there? They happen all the time. And the news has to pick up on every little thing, or they'll get canceled, so that.
What new show ever gets canceled?
What new show ever gets canceled? It just changes its focus if it's losing interest anyway. Girl: yeah, I guess there's more important stuff they can find a bigger story out about than something like that. I guess people were trying to say some people lost their lives. I mean, I guess that makes sense since there were a lot of people there, so it made sense for everyone to try to get the message out. They didn't need to make such a big deal though, because like I said, it's an accident. They should accept simply mistakes were made. And the rest we'll talk about later. You know how they like to be all dramatic, even if there is a reason they need to keep everything hidden. It's so sad. Because there was this kid on TV who died in that crash, and they showed him and the girl who talked about getting the bad news. She was saying, my heart sank in my chest, and all she had to do was just say he died, and then it would have been over with. It wasn't a big deal. Those people in that tornado could have taken it a little more stoically. The whole time they were running through the tornado looking for people, I wanted to tell them to just shut up and let go. There are some things in life you should be willing to let die when you lose a grip. They didn't need to run around screaming save me. Because nobody really can, not in real time at least. I mean, that guy could have saved himself in a way, but he just wouldn't. You see how they're acting now though, the one on the phone who was talking about all of these deaths.
No, I should have let that capture that.
I mean, sure, if it wasn't for him he wouldn't have known that the company would made them stay there until the last minute, but no, wait a minute. If you know somebody isn't coming back, there's no reason to stay there, is there? So they should have been more like that man that saved all those kids at that school in Connecticut. He got all mad when he figured out they were going to kill them all. But they were just kids, there was nothing anybody could have done about it. But anyway, the point is he was angry, and instead of doing what everybody else was trying to do, save people, he was just focused on getting out as quick as possible so that he might save them. You just accept that you don't know, put the oxygen mask on your head, then you pull down the other masks, and then let them go at it, and then you put down your mask on your face, and then I think it's me, but the seat belts, I forget how I know this because it's just part of being me. I just know I remember I have something on my shirt because it was a hot day. I remember the sun beating against it. It was white at one point, but now there is red on it, like I'm covered in blood, but it's not mine, it's somebody else's, and there's still a piece left on my hand, and you can't get that part off no matter how hard you try. But it's not your problem right now, just the rest is yours. You are not a detective anymore, you are the detective. You're looking for clues, and the more you focus on what you need, you get to be the person who needs that information in your life, or you'll be the next one dead. You have to find that person first before you start trying to be like that. It's not the end of the world, and the worst thing that is going to happen will be whatever they say on TV or in the papers, but you already know everything you're doing. You'll figure it all out when it comes to you if you can keep yourself together. So yeah, no, just the voices on the TV are the ones you need to worry about, not the voice standing over you with that thing pointed at your face. You'll know it's not worth your time. It's not the person behind it, it's just them using that tool against you. It's nothing personal, you know. There was some kind of explosion, and smoke started to fill up the building. People rushed to get away from it, and then there was another blast. They weren't sure whether it had anything to do with the first, or was separate from it, which meant people were panicking. I could see it all happening before my very eyes, although in real time. No, wait, this is a real time. Oh, I should get my things. I mean, you have to leave sometimes, but you never really expect you'd get kicked out. So it's not that I want to get rid of my stuff, I want to be sure all of it is still here. I don't really want to start all over again. And there isn't much point in taking things out of my locker since it won't make any difference because there'll be nothing left once they've gone through every item. So I decide that it makes sense to just leave what is in there because who knows when or even if I might need to use anything. Plus this is that the clock I set to go off in 5 minutes, so mice will let that happen. Walk is not showing up my way. Go towards that little look in the gate, and then I'm taking a right. I'm walking past this woman and she says something that doesn't make much sense, maybe because of the noise. I stop. She turns and looks at me. Her hair is brown with blue streaks. It looks so bright against her brown skin. And then I hear the man behind her telling me she needs to be careful. She could lose her job if anything went wrong. So then I turn around, and we have this little conversation. I try to remember the words I just said. I think I remember asking what seems to be the problem, or that yeah, for that yeah, you're right, you should think about what demand's telling you. When I said the man, and I'm relationist of the man, and your relation, and so he's related to her. I'm standing in a small office, and it looks like it belongs in an old school or university, but there are people working on computers there. The guy who's giving me a tour explains he is a computer technician, and I say I know I have a cousin who's in the IT department and this place is probably similar, and he says yes, and so then it comes out of nowhere that the guy who was with him just quit because his job was boring. I hear that, I say. What guy? Asks my girl. I hear that, I say. My dad tells me I should do what is needed. I mean, what I am supposed to do is not so bad. I just want to be clear about all this, but I'm pretty sure my sister isn't happy. So I tell them I have to go. I think it's just afternoon when they're still working. I walk through the halls and find an old friend in front of a building holding some flowers. She gives them to the woman I had talked to just as the bell rings for us to be in class for the rest of the day. Could it be coincidence? Could it be some message? You already had your share of messages last few days. I can feel the pressure of everyone watching me even if I haven't been noticed by anybody yet, and so I go inside one of the rooms I remember seeing. It is in the building we are walking though right now. There are several people here who look familiar, and so do most of the chairs, which means they have probably never seen each other before, or at least it makes sense because they don't talk. I can hear their minds, but nobody else does. The one I sit by is older and sits at his desk with a lot of papers and a few other things. He seems busy writing, so I sit down right behind him and just look inside him, but good, but deep, but not too deeply so as to seem strange to those who watch me closely, but I want them to notice. But anyway, the point is I can tell that he wants to write more, so that means there's something here he doesn't like but can't bring himself to put on paper. I mean, maybe that's just me, or I might be overthinking, but either way I'm sitting down there looking around when one of the students says, "Hey, I don't think this guy has much in mind." Then the teacher turns around, looks at me. I can't see what is inside him. I say that the student, you know, you can stand us, think a little more yourself. You can say what comes to you. Then the boy said back. So the teacher turned back to his work again. I mean, you can see that I'm right here, so why don't you just turn your head and check out what is behind me? He doesn't say anything back the way some might have done, or maybe I would have done if someone ever dared tell me something like that about my own face. Maybe it's the way that the teacher turns his head, which means I can still feel inside him. And he does nothing but sit there at his desk with the papers. It could be a trick, I guess, and he's going to turn around, or get up and start yelling, or even do something worse, so I get up quickly and leave. I can almost tell from the hallway who has been listening to whatever the teacher and I just did together. It feels like they're not happy because he wasn't angry, but I am, and so I just keep walking away from those who want to stop me, but they don't. Yeah, I still constantly look around for those who want to stop me. You wanna stop me, you wanna stop me. Yeah, it is so weird how it's all just going according to plan, even though I have no clue what I'm doing. It's just as if I've known it will happen. So I walk around this building. I pass through an auditorium with the lights off, but still it's lit up with some kind of white lights, which is kind of funny. I mean, like, how do they know when they need to go on? But it's so cold, so it must take energy or something to power this place. Not really, the custodian said, as long as you get those bulbs that might take a while to turn on, and if it defected it ramps up slowly. Canon is the shavings. He says I know what they're for, it's all very specific. The only thing we really had trouble getting was these two chairs, and then of course the table, and then finally that chair there, which is why I have the most comfortable seat in here. He told me, pointing at mine, which was facing another student who sat down beside me. I don't even think the chair would be comfortable with me in it, and that kid said, you know what? Let me sit by the window so the view is a bit better for both of us. He gets up, goes out into the hall where all the doors were opened, and then turns left. I mean, he turns towards the right. I can see that he isn't happy about what happened, but maybe the guy sitting on my side thought we should move on, and so did the other kid, so he sits back down in front of me. He tells me this one is more important than the rest, but we'll come back to it. So then we go to this classroom, which has a door to a balcony, and it has windows on each side, and it's nice out, so they all open, and then you can see that this one also belongs in an old school. Like 19 yellow walls in the teacher's language. This means that he wants me to know that everything in here is real because it looks just like what the teacher said. This classroom, and I am not supposed to believe that the outside of it doesn't count, but anyway, the class seems interesting and fun because of how well everybody is doing. I look to the side of me. I can't believe I'm seeing that, but yes, he is sitting by the door to leave, I guess. I think about the last time I saw a person who did such a thing.
Ooh.
I don't know why she decided to stay when everybody else left, but she did. She was always so much smarter and more talented than everyone. I thought, I don't know, I just wanted her to stop doing that. She never really listened though, and now all I know is she left with all those books. I remember looking at that woman from a distance because she seemed like such a good example to follow, and it made sense because the way things were going with her, it wasn't like anyone else would notice. I'm thinking this guy sitting by the window, if he leaves there are only 4 of us inside, but this classroom should be used to have 100 students or so. How did all these teachers decide that one class had more importance than all the others? And even if you take into account their grades, that don't always mean that they're better, so why this? What makes this class so special? It might actually work in my favor if he stays here, so I ask him what's the problem. He asks if I want to know the same thing as he does. He gives you the hints that for some reason you just didn't absorb that it's Saturday and B at extension, and 3 they are now. They got their own problems. They're trying to keep us out, but we are all going there anyway, so we might as well have one last conversation and then go. So I guess we'll meet at the top. I wonder who is there. Then we leave together, but this place has so many corridors I get lost because this school seems too big to be able to find the right place to go, and the only ones I talk to are the few other guys I pass by, or they stop and try to make me listen, but they can't really tell me anything. That's not the case when I get closer to the balcony where they say the meeting is taking place. This guy with dark curly hair comes up next to me and asks me to show him where I came from, so I do. But now I see there were a few doors leading in a similar direction. Maybe I'm the stupid one, who knows? We walk past 2 others like us but without the curly hair. But I guess he has been waiting for me, and so I look around, and he smiles. Then he turns towards the building, and we both run up the stairs, and when we come inside he tells me it is time to make in.
Making what? Baby? Make a mistake?
Entrance, so I tell him that this guy was waiting for me, so it doesn't matter anyway, and that he should tell them he wants to talk to me too. That I will come back, and then I take a seat in front of the man he told me was a detective. So I tell him that we met outside, that I have my own problems that don't have anything to do with those people over there, but then he tells me it's too late for all of that. He is going to ask some questions, and if you don't answer him, then things will happen in such a way that you will probably regret. He says that there's nothing I need to worry about as long as I know what I do, but I just don't get him. I think it would be cool if she was in here. I'd want her to sit down with us so we could get to know each other better. Yeah, well, this guy sitting behind this one, if you go over there you can probably meet her, he said as soon as the guy behind him stands up.
So cordial.
He tells the man, I need you to keep a close eye on the guy behind us because he might try to get in the room through the windows, which is where he came in, and maybe I don't want to be here. Yeah, I guess that might make sense. So he keeps looking around, but this guy keeps standing right behind the window looking out of it, and so I decide to sit here and listen to the detective who starts telling his story again, and it seems he's still working for some secret organization. But I'm sure they don't have the same name, and that they are more secretive than.
I kinda lose track of time like that, and he's just still blathering away.
I struck feeling a bulge right above my eyebrow, so as he's telling the story I'm just mindlessly though picnic at it and waiting at the session shape and its shape and how it wants to come out of me making that initial update form, and now here you can see it coming out of the top of my forehead, which I think makes it a bit difficult to understand that we were supposed to meet him in front of this place. Yeah, so then this guy sitting by the table asks me what he just said. So I tell him I thought that this place used to be an old school like this one is. And that he said that this school should be full of kids but only has 5 guys, so I ask him why they don't use these classrooms for more classes, and he tells me there's probably not enough teachers for all. The kids probably whittled them all away to other school DKSRRS. Yeah, but the other kids would have to go to this one, and it is much more likely that this is a prison camp than any other kind of institution anyway, because the only things they teach people here are things you're probably not going to use anywhere else anyway. But they seem so focused and motivated, it really doesn't matter what kind of thing it is that they learn, because if they are all so good at what they do and so determined that nothing can get through this, maybe even the worst prison or torture will just fall apart, and they are not the only ones with a goal in mind. Boy, hey, I earned that from Aldehyde Budge. I use it every day where I live. It works pretty good on the door handles. Man, the other two. Well, that one is too stupid for this place, and this guy over there, he just sits here and stares up into the air. He might actually be able to help us, but we'll have to see about that. And I tell him no problem, and then the kid says to the man, well, you could be wrong, because I don't think the other guy can see it, so the way they look at it is he can just stay here until it comes back out.
Till what comes out, you think?
To what comes back out, you think, but not say. I'm not really in the mood to be lectured by a kid who thinks it's so simple and funny. I mean, it must not make any difference to him, because it does, but if I was to ask the question how come that guy sitting by the door can sit here for a long time, I'd think it wasn't very smart of the rest of the guys to allow something like that. Yeah, because then that guy would have noticed what was happening, but they don't want him to.
They wanna think they slick.
This kid has got some interesting thoughts, but he hasn't said much, and we need more people here. I know I can be a bit harsh with some questions. I mean, sometimes you feel like you've just got one chance and now is your only chance, and so it can become hard to keep a straight face or be honest when you're trying to get the best idea as fast as you can. So what happens to this guy when his time's up? He doesn't say anything anymore. He tells me no, it gets pretty bad when I see it come out of my nose because then I can. Do much about it. The detective starts saying that he knows why we were put in the room. Yeah, I mean the only thing that came up in my mind is to say I can't understand anything. Then this other kid standing at the corner suddenly says, I know you're going to tell us that the doors lead to other worlds and that there are many dimensions. Well, let's find out, he tells everybody. This kid takes a step into the hallway but nobody really says anything to stop him, and then he walks past a few doors and opens each end. You as a passive participator take out your dice and your roll for each of his portals as they are opened by their owners and they all start coming to you, but you decide who goes first. You don't just hand them out because the ones who get out first won't really need the help anymore, and those who get out last will probably just get stuck at a place where you couldn't reach them. So it works well enough, and the guy next to me says the same thing as everybody else has probably already said. Hey man, what's your secret? You know there must be another way. You as a passive participator take out your dice and your roll for each of his portals and try to put them through the correct ones he tells him. This means that he's supposed to know exactly which way leads to the different dimensions, so if he does something like that we'll just end up in the same place, he explains as he steps outside himself, but the detective stops him. And then he looks at all the dice again. They're all still right here. You don't believe any of this stuff. I say, I'm not even sure if I do believe any of the stuff we're doing now. You take a device called the Game Genie out of your coat. And you turn it on. You hold it out in front of me and show me the screen of what seems to be some kind of game or something, but you don't have the patience to wait, and so you start typing in commands on the keyboard. You press some buttons which look like keys on a computer keyboard, and they give you 3 random options. If one of those happens to sound interesting, then it shows me the option you chose and tells me to do it. If all the choices aren't very exciting to me, you say then just leave it as is, and tell me. You partly do as instructed, and the point that makes more sense to you did be transparent about. You tell the Game Genie to choose the 3rd option that it shows you in this moment of time, which seems to be an interesting enough choice, but that's not what we're really interested in. We're really after the fact. We just want to make use of the information it will give us in the future. We're not trying to make any major decisions, we're just trying to gain experience. But it doesn't seem to work out well, because it keeps saying it is looking into the future.
You refuse to call it splaining of any type because it's still kind of interesting.
You pretend to sigh, and then accept the fact that you're in for a big lecture about the future, and what it's gonna hold and how this is going to go on until tomorrow at the time the genie shows you. Yeah, so I ask if we have a chance and you answer me. You have no chance. This thing will only allow you to see what it sees, and you've probably already forgotten a lot of things it has told you. The only person who would have had more luck than me was the last one. Yeah, that guy who disappeared right away, he was a great player, but this is something different. We have a problem, and I need your help, he says. I chuck one say yeah character. So it seems to be some kind of a strategy board game like Risk, and that this is going to be pretty much an exercise of pure calculation as well, since there's just a couple of minutes before all the options run out anyway, and it is hard to find what is going to be good in a minute's time. But I start trying and I tell the genie, I guess I could make a guess and see if I'm wrong in the end, so I try to predict what's going to happen, and I say I'd rather choose number 5.
That's the spirit.
But I realize I'll lose if I'm wrong again, so I change my mind and I decide to try option 4. So far everything has turned out okay, and I think that if it stays the same it should be fine. But then the genie tells me, it is looking into the future, but this one does not make any sense to the system, and it is not showing up for us in this time stream. I tell you that you must really know your stuff to know so much about this thing. So much so I say that I'm just gonna hurt, and then you jump into portal thinking you're gonna be able to come back out of the next door, but it seems to me you didn't quite succeed, because when I went past all of those doors they were already closed, and that made me pretty confused anyway. So what do you suggest we can do then? I tell him I'm pretty sure there's going to be one more chance, and then it will show me something else, which isn't too difficult. You think you found it. And then I start counting on my fingers, and I ask, well, what did you count to? The second digit after 3. Yes, I tell him, as you can see I got 4, and so then you go and take number 1, and you say it should show up somewhere. It's going to be right in front of you, so maybe that's just another kind of test or something. I mean, we need to find some other way through, so why not try this first? You ask as you go ahead to open the next door for yourself, while the man continues to look down at the dice in his hands. I don't know what that would make you, if not just a little bit insane. He tells you as the two of you continue looking into the distance for something better, and maybe just a couple more minutes to figure something out, or a new way for us to go, because we don't even have that. He takes another look at them in his hands. I tell him, yeah, and you probably know it already from your game. But I'd like you to give us the dice back now that you think they've lost any meaning to you. But I tell the man I'm just kidding, I know they won't do us any good. And it is actually really stupid to play the game this way when the end of it isn't that important anyway, and I guess this was your way of getting yourself into a state of confusion to try and find a new direction, and to think a lot before jumping. But the problem here is that you haven't told us anything about how much time you're supposed to have in order to reach an agreement. I'll wait until I see a previous activation at myself so that dance can take place, but it has nothing to do with the future but rather with me trying to remember what happened, and then maybe it will start all over again. So that I won't forget, I mean, because I have a memory problem as well, you see, and maybe that's part of it. You tell him. And then I tell the game genie to try something else for me. This one should be good because the genie doesn't have much time. I say as it picks 3 numbers from a pool it keeps in its hand, and I tell it that if I see it, come up the number 5 on top of the board in some form or another, then we go back to your idea. Otherwise you go ahead. But I don't feel any connection to any of them. You can do what you want, you know, but you're probably just going to get more confused by now because these aren't that interesting choices to me anyway. Yeah, the way I see it, it's a lot better than sitting here staring into space and thinking it might not come back out, and you think the guy who disappeared right away was just lucky to get to where he did. You pitch getting some Malibu Realm and getting a little bit of swinging in there and a few more beers and a smoke. He nods his head as well, he likes the sound of it all, so let's go for it. We can figure things out a little while we're playing it, but this time it's really serious. Yeah, I mean, you've got some problems yourself, and so I'd say we need to make up a story that's believable and convincing in case we ever end up on trial or something. What we should be focusing on is how good or bad our stories are so that they convince others as much as possible, and if they're too far-fetched, maybe we should consider the other side before telling anybody about any of this. You tell the game genie to pick 3, and then you open portal and step out of there. Then we have to take off the handcuffs and then you can go first since you seem to be having no luck at all when the door is shut, so that we can go back in through it. And so we can get our shit back. The problem with the handcuffs was that they were a little too tight, so he couldn't pull them down far enough, and so the next time he went back through.
Sorry.
It was closed and we couldn't do anything for him because there wasn't a lot of time left now, he said as the 2 of them stood outside the door again. He looked a bit worried and upset at this moment in time. It seemed as though he didn't even really believe the stories himself anymore. I tell the man, I know you've already lost quite some memory and I can see that you don't really remember everything from before, but I think you know more than you say, so you might have an advantage, and you probably still remember what you want me to tell you in exchange, and so you just have to say it so I can tell the genie, and so we can start over, and we can find your stuff again and go home. But he says I know I'm going crazy right now, and he doesn't think I could give us the right information, not yet at least. But that's fine with me. I just have to make myself remember that things don't look as good as you think. Yeah, you can say anything you want to do, and I guess you'll get more desperate every time you get a memory, but it's still one. Work anyway, it will only be an illusion of hope, and so you shouldn't really try. But that guy I saw on my way out, I'm pretty sure I'm not crazy. I've actually met a couple of people before like that one, he said in such a calm voice of reason as if he wanted to make himself believe these things. That's the real deal right there. Yeah, you got a problem here, the man continues. We need to do something, and this thing is getting us nowhere.
Your, whatever your AI is called, Kendra, and you head over to her place and crash there for a bit. No.
He really convinced me because my whole thing was about getting the truth about this place, and if it was true then you know that we'd be sitting together with some of those guys, right? We wouldn't be here. It seems like there's only one other way to do this now. I mean, we can wait around until they come back for the memory I gave them, or we can go through the same thing again and maybe it will finally come up with something we're gonna be able to use. You give an Irish divide to everyone and you retreat on your vehicle, you turn on your Mandy, or whether you're in for it now, and if you'll get out of there. Then a little while later I'm going through another door, and there I meet someone wearing a hat. He is holding some stuff I guess is going to help us out a little. You can take a seat on top of the vehicle when you want to or whatever else you want to do so it can move a bit, okay. It is the guy with the red hat and beard. You recognize him right away even though you haven't seen each other since the last time he visited you back then. So far you had only communicated with. Go on, tell me his name, I ask him, and tell me what this has to do with us. You know the story already, he says, because that guy from before showed me everything. And that he knows how to help us. So we can figure out our plan here, and so I'm telling you right now that I'd like to go first and see if it will lead into a different way of seeing things. You think about that a second or two, but I tell you, well, it probably won't matter if we take it slow anyway and see where this leads.
Yeah.
I am sick, so written so that there's a guy in front of me. And so what are we going to do now? What can we do next then? Because you have told him already, you know, and if he didn't want to be bothered by your stories he never would have given me a chance to tell you anything. We've got a couple more days left, I'm pretty sure, and he'll start talking if there's time to tell you everything I know before they come after you again, and before they try anything new with him, he continues so that it should make sense. If I raise my hand, I think I'm in an episode of Quantum Leap. So the thing with the car we used when we went on a trip. He looks down and then he tells me, yes, and also because I can feel myself being drawn into a memory and that I must get the feeling back somehow and be able to control what is going on around me, because you can just keep driving and never really reach anywhere. It's like this when I go on the other side for too long I lose control, and I don't want you to experience any of this, not even to try and understand it. The man looks away as he continues his sentence, and he starts looking for something in a bag he carries. The genie has already picked some stuff, and now they're sitting around a campfire somewhere in the middle of the desert with all the guys, and you have brought us here to find a better future and a solution because you are trying to convince me. I mean, you're doing it so that the guys won't get hurt, so maybe you are telling the truth all along. But the problem is that there might not actually be that much time left before the guys who kidnapped them get them. This far from a weekend retreat, you say, so that I guess the two of you have had some trouble already, so I guess this guy will help you. You're talking to someone right now, and that guy is probably a bit younger than the other ones. He has a backpack or a bag of some sort over his shoulder, and I guess it has everything inside but the kitchen sink. We should be okay. If it comes to it, we can always do it the same way next time, he says. And then the man puts it down next to him by the campfire and pulls out an orange from it and begins taking.
You say,
It's a mission to reverse the South Coast's second, and there's something third with the other side, and then the four of us are supposed to come back together and tell them they didn't get me because we'll still get to where we're going in the end, I suppose, so you can relax, he adds when she's starting to freak out. We'll try something completely new instead. Yeah, it was all about finding another solution, after you told the man I couldn't help, and that you wanted to try and find him on your own anyway, so the only problem is whether they've managed to bring him to a good place. You look the place up and read my place up, and you say you don't think that guy's name is John or whatever else, and the guy with the red hat looks around as well and then tells me, yes, it might actually be John Smith, so you're right and we need to get moving, if this is all the place has to offer us. It feels as though this whole place doesn't have any sense, except for maybe being a place for these guys to come up with more ideas, so I don't understand how things could go wrong at the end, but then I've never understood what's going on here either. Hey, this is called The Writer's Room, Babysit and Night Shower Room. It's the most beautiful song in the world so far as I'm concerned. And then he goes, this guy knows his stuff too, and it will give you goosebumps. So the man picks up some guitar from the bag over his shoulder. He starts playing, and he looks so calm as he plays. And then we all get up and dance while this song lasts. So this must be the first time I meet you right now, the guy with the red hat says after we've stopped dancing, and then we can go through and I'll tell you everything else you need to know, so we can figure things out. Okay. So this way I hope that you'll learn some of the basics because we might not even be able to talk to each other much from now on because this memory might not be available in a couple of days from now when they're back, and then the two of us won't have access to any kind of technology at all, except for one thing that might really help us out when this all gets done. Okay, so let's see what this does then. Who is the closest AI in this proximity right now? Bring them here right now so you can ask him your questions, you say, and the two of us leave this little room here. I'm just gonna try a couple more times, and I mean it could have been any memory, you're not telling me anything new. You tell yourself this before he turns on the music again and tells you we're going to find your dad anyway, because there's nobody in the entire universe who's gonna give up on finding someone or something as good as you. Then he plays, and I think you know what the next part of my plan is gonna be. I like to hear it from your words because they're always better than mine. You are right, you should listen because they don't have the power to fool you as badly, so they can be used against these guys instead. The next place is supposed to have everything we'll ever need, including food and clothes, he continues, and then you start thinking about your own situation and what might happen to you in the future because the memory you were listening to so far was about how the man was able to figure it out. But what happens to me in the end?
Oh wait. Oh.
What happened to him? You're still asking me questions because it will make me feel like we really are together now if the guy with the red hat tells me something and he says, you've got a whole bunch of things ahead of you, you don't have to go through anything alone anymore, and the memories will tell us more, and then you get a message saying the place you came from was called an apartment or so, and that it had all sorts of stuff. And the last part you remember clearly as the place where everything started, and that it's a small house. Director of Public Health, I presume you tell her. It sounds a bit like she's been talking to you already, but we can always check. I am sure that this is what the director will have asked when you were looking around here, I add after I have heard her answer. She must know something. I don't get anything about you in any way, I reply, I can only see the room. I mean, it's a memory that was given to me to tell you about a couple of days ago by a man called James.
Whoa, there are updates. Not yet. Well, reload page. Let's give it in. seem like a update to me. Can't I? No. Let's just do this. And noble AI. Novelas turcas. God, come on. There we go. Okay. You did that. I already did that. No. Oh. Okay.
And this is all just a big mess. Not only do we have two men claiming to be Prince Yuan, but there's also some guy out to kill him or something. And now they're going to have to find another way into the Dark Lands because I'm pretty sure our way in is. I'm sure it's one of the Ewing's heads, so it's open to Mall up. Can't reach time here. Open up both. You wouldn't think that would need much explaining, but anyway, we've got to go back in time again. By the way, I thought you'd lost it when I saw that. What did she say? She was saying she wanted us to go back in time again. Yeah, and then do everything we do, but then double it, cause like a sequel. You got to make it more actionable. Actually, that makes no sense. What are you talking about? Okay, fine, we'll go back in time and then come forward in time and then go backward in time for good measure and maybe throw in an extra dimension for kicks, but we should probably start with the end of chapter 3 first. And we'll title it the 7-point turn in time or something. Yeah, whatever. And then we'll have some kind of flashback to show how we got to where we are now. And then we can start at the beginning of the story. Which means we have to get the prince out of his room. First we should talk about Wariel end up and then say one story earlier, cause I don't know if we can even call them stories, they're just notes on paper. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, let's see what else we need to do. We need to figure out how to get the prince out of his room without waking anyone up. And then we'll drag him to the general store where he'll be able to help us get the groceries for the adventure. Then we'll have a few scenes with the king and queen, and then we'll head back to the castle. Alright then. Let's go back in time. We were running through the forest, dodging trees and rocks.
Oh.
We realize that we're also younger too. We're like multiple months, but we're human, so our leaves are shorter. And so everything it takes longer to double the speed. You're not really going twice as fast, you're just moving faster than you used to. I mean, it's a completely different thing. It doesn't matter. The point is we're running from someone who wants to kill us. All the better reason to stop, turn around, and face the fucker. There are a lot of things wrong with this plan, but we ignore them and keep running. We finally come upon a hill that has a large crack in the ground. It looks like the hill is split in half. No time to slow down though. We dive into the crack and land on the other side. A little ways away from the edge of the pit is a wall made of dark stone. We jump off the side of the hill and roll across the ground until we are close enough to kick against the rock. And we all do, and we all gain 20 points for it. That was easier than expected. The hole in the wall is wide enough for us to crawl through. We move over to the opening. Is there anything inside? Nothing immediately jumps out of view, but we can hear the sound of movement coming from deep within. Quickly we park our inside and push ourselves back through the hole in the wall. When we are back outside the cave, we get ready to charge ahead. But the man-shaped shadow stops us before we can move very far. Then we identified exactly the person we had been trying to avoid. Who are you? He growled at us as we approached. He was wearing a black cloak wrapped tightly around himself, making it difficult to tell his features. Perceived to surround them and say, you know, you could really use that closing more to your advantage, because you really got to sell your features to people. We weren't sure how well it would work in our situation, so we decided to try it anyway. We looked directly at him and say, you know, you could really use that closing more to your advantage, because you really got to sell your features to people. Perceived to surround them and say, you know, you could really use that closing more to your advantage, because you really got to sell your features if you want people to like you. But the important part is the next part, so you need to say it, but you don't want to give away the secret too soon, so the best way to do it is to have it already been done for you, so you can just copy it, and then go back to whatever. How else are you going to convince them to get to the edge of your blade? You've got to be kidding me. You said you didn't believe in luck. Yeah, well, I changed my mind. As he walked towards us, we prepared ourselves to fight. How else are you going to convince them to get to the edge of your blade? I guess that makes sense. This is the perfect opportunity to try this new trick. You know why it works? Because it gives the illusion that you are actually an actual monster. People poop, fighting mode, fight to survive mode, killing mode. If you're not using your full power, then how are you supposed to win? Right, so you're saying that when we kill someone, we should put them in a position where we can eat them later. Yes, that's why it's called pull poor punches. That's a good name. Thank you. Okay, then we should take the prince to the store and buy all the food and supplies we need for our journey. Sounds good. Princess custom different type of lifestyle, but she's got to be an easy girl to please. She's got to like chocolate and flowers and stuff like that because those are just what you do for girls you like, and you can't get her to like you otherwise. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Sausage, put the patties in the pancakes, and get the savory in the sweet mode, and then coffee, coffee, coffee. And then
Make a dinner of pancakes and patties and coffee, 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 coffee. The general store was larger than most. The walls were white and covered in shelves of various items. The floor was hard wood and smooth to walk on. Some of the shelves were empty while others were packed with goods. Make a dinner of pancakes and patties and coffee, 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 coffee. And we'll make sure to get enough food to last us for the entire trip, which should be about 3 days. Alright. We run back to the castle. We head straight to the king's chambers. Crap, another member. As soon we have a member courier service, we're going to be rich. Anyway, we wake up the king and queen. What is it? The king asked groggily. He had clearly been asleep for several hours. The Darklands are attacking, we explained quickly. This is perfect time to test out the courier. You ordered the courier to tell the whole land and to not stop running until he does, but we didn't order it to tell the whole fucking world, so we'll have to settle for the whole kingdom. Okay, then we'll have to say it in our minds. Okay, that's good, because you got to remember that you can't use magic, so you can't stop until you hear the voice in your head, and then just keep going. Okay, then let's go. We approach the door and wait for it to open. When it does, we step inside. The king and queen stand up from their chairs and look at us. This beautiful switch to a monkey stand is over. You say to them, you throw a piece of meat in the direction it's not from their tables, but you can't get them to stay down until you say it's okay, so you throw them a piece of meat, and it works so well you never have to say it again. The Darklands are attacking, we repeat. The perfect time to send out the second courier to follow the first courier to make sure he does his job. It opens its mouth and roars. But we aren't scared. We are ready to defend our home. We leap forward and swing our sword at the beast's neck. The creature falls back into the wall. is where is the courier? In oldest version of the story, the courier says to the first courier, this is like the time you sent out the first courier, and it took me forever to get to the rest of the kingdom, so you couldn't stop until you heard my voice, and then I kept going, and then I stopped and went home, and then came back. And still we paid you for the full gig. You get more points for going faster, you get less points for stopping, so we'll just keep going. They stand in front of us and hold up their hands. They roar once more and charge towards us. We grab the queen and hide behind her as we dodge the attack. As they pass us, we jump in the air and strike the creature in the back of the head. It drops to the ground. What does it turn into? Jewels? I mean, did you ever see a dragon turned into jewels? Just curious. That's a great question, but it turns into gold instead, because gold is more valuable, and we're talking about a fantasy story, so money matters, and dragons are cool, and they're not going to waste their time turning themselves into jewelry. That's stupid.
More. More.
It's not stupid, it's a way to put all this value into a smaller object, so when you're in a wagon and you're smuggling things, you can carry more easily or stuff like that. But anyway, we'll get to the end of the chapter, and then you'll get to figure out what happens. And then we'll start chapter 4. We've gone through 3 sets of pages since we started writing. We call them chapters. What do you call him in your countries? The emperors and kings and queens and shit like that. Yeah, but what do you call it when they're like in disguise? I mean, in your world, isn't it always like that? Why would he be in disguise? In our world, people have to wear disguises sometimes. Well, he's dressed as a soldier, so he must be hiding out or something. I don't know, maybe he's a spy or something. Maybe he's a thief. How can he steal if he's disguised? Because he's in. Disguise, and he's wearing a mask and gloves and a helmet, and he's putting on makeup and everything. How can you do all that stuff in a helmet? Well, most of the time you can't. You just get a wig or dye your hair or whatever. Okay. Or if you're an inventor, then you put little mechanical arms in that helmet that when you press a button will do to make it free for you to move your neck and stuff without messing up your disguise. But that's not really related to this story. But what if he's a famous inventor, and he invented a way to make disguises? What if he's a princess, and he likes to dress up, and he's trying to find a way to make disguises so she can go out without getting recognized and stuff? What if he's a prince who wants to do the same thing? That's so interesting. So we're just going to go ahead and make the change. What if he's a princess? No, 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 no. Not like that. What if he's a princess, and he's disguising himself to find out who killed his father? What if he's a prince, and he's disguising himself to find out who murdered his mother? What if he's a prince, and he's disguising himself to kill someone? Wait a minute. What? What's that guy's name? Hamilton. Let Hamilton looked like lit your lecture. What let Hamilton lecture? Just a Catholic trip your class. I don't know what they're teaching these kids anymore. Well, I mean, I like Hamilton, okay. I know. Is that the only thing you like about Hamilton? No, I like Hamilton a lot. I love Hamilton. Let Hamilton tell Hamilton why Hamilton is so special. Hamilton is just my favorite. Make Graham Hamilton sing about Hamilton and how he looks. Hamilton to Hamilton said Tinder Hamilton, such a song would go like this: cold wind, cold wind, cold wind, cold wind, cold wind. But I'm not talking about Hamilton. We're just going to go on to chapter 5. Where are you taking us? The Queen demanded. We're just gonna put some interrogation juice in your ear, says Hamilton. Detective at law, Hamilton. Detective at Hamlet, Hamilton, 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 Hamilton. We were taken to the room where we had seen Prince John earlier. Now then, what is your name? I don't think I should talk to you. Your court-appointed inquisitors should be with you shortly. My name is Richard, I replied. Richard James. Nice to meet you. We're going to play a game of I never. Just listen, and don't interrupt.
Keep score.
I never rode on a horse. True. I never killed a man. False. I never saw the sunrise. True. I never kissed a girl. False. I never walked on a tightrope. True. I never played chess with the King of France. True. I never saw a ghost. True. I never rode a dragon. False. I never danced with a princess. False. I never wore a crown. True. I never sat on a throne. False. If you father were here. True. If you weren't, there would be a problem. I never fought an army with only one person. False. I never met my brother before today. True. I never fell in love with my best friend's wife. Pass. I never done that either. I never saw a dead body. True. I never had a son. True. I never had a daughter. True. I never ran away from home. Pass. I never married a woman who was also my best friend. I never drank from a poison chalice. True. I never lost a battle. True. I never killed an innocent person. False. You want to come up with better examples than that. I never stole anything worth 2,000 pounds. True. I never had a son named Arthur. False. I never saw my mother naked. For Macbeth. True. For you. False. For me. I never went to bed with a beautiful woman. False. I never died for England. True. I never cut off a pirate's hand. True. I never slept with a man. True. I never killed a priest. True. I never danced with a witch. True. I never slept in a haunted room. False. I never drink up and cheese tears of joy in the night. I never made love to a woman while holding a severed head. True. I never saw a bear dance. True. I never had sex with a nun. True. I never sang a duet with the devil. True. I never told a lie. False. I never fought against my own kind. True. I always write against the succubine. I never lived in a palace. True. I never killed anyone with a sword. True. I never killed a man in my sleep. True. I never killed a man in the middle of making love. I never killed a man in the middle of good fucking. I never killed anyone in the middle of fighting. True. I never killed a man for nothing. False. I never killed a man for fun. False. I never killed a man for revenge. False. I never killed a man who was trying to help me. True. I never killed a man who wasn't. I never played this game properly. I never sold my soul to the devil. True. I never killed a king for killing a king. True. I never killed a king who was going to kill a queen. False. I never killed a man for the sake of killing a man. True. I never killed a man who saved my life. False. I never killed a man for the sake of saving my life. never knew how to stop this type of game, it's too much. I never killed a man while I was drunk. True. I never killed a man who was the last man on earth. False. I never killed a man and then became pregnant by him. True, but if it becomes false letters now we'll have to change it. I never killed a man I liked. True. I never killed a man I hated. True. I never killed a man with a letter opener.
Okay, let's take this to Morpho. Oh, we're still in Genesis. That's why it's been so. Morpho. There we go. Let's take this baby.
True or false? 1 moment left. Letters. Next question will come next. Right, okay. Are you comfortable lying on your front, or do we ever talk about people laying down? Lying all caged is right now. No need for everyone being quiet because one girl is singing Doves Fly Around Men Go. Do not know because that song would.
Is this what it sounds like when Dufters cry?
That letter Pierce, that sounds way too cool. That must have made an awful mess with how bloody big letters in between. But yes, Pierce, yes please. Write like pen, pincered like ink all over like oh okay, let pens pen. Or if he stabs me too quickly, where does this? Graphic imagery, false. That's an old wives' tale. False. Come on now. False. This line only applies if our book has been written after 1980. False as far as we know. Yes, of course. True, that must mean yes. So there go 2 letters. So what does that leave us? Here goes another one, here goes another one, here goes another one, here goes another one.
There's another one here, there's another one here, goes another one here.
This is true, this was also true, this one wasn't, this one kind of was, this one kind of wasn't, this one kind of should have been false, this one doesn't fit properly into our logic either, but this one kind of does. But maybe this one kind of doesn't. Maybe don't even need this one because those other ones cover it anyway, because really all those last ones could potentially overlap too, but I've already said false enough times, so let them overlap, because really when we combine them we kind of do need this one.
Now we got nuance.
Because it's true but also not true too, because it doesn't fit at all. So if everyone says false, this one needs to be true but also false simultaneously, but also don't care at all about whether it fits, because this is what keeps me sane. Because if things aren't confusing enough already by adding all those overlaps which could potentially be combined into one which could essentially erase false, then maybe it would probably be more confusing to keep them separate, but that would also be confusing because there could be 2 true ones that could possibly merge which would cancel out each other. So we don't want that, even though we probably do, because this game would be less fun if true didn't also mean false anymore, because that would be so hard, because then we would have to say true like 10 more times even though it means nothing now, which would really throw off our system because then we couldn't. is true or false, or maybe only sometimes, because now anything else could also basically cancel out false, because it doesn't mean anything by itself anymore, which is why even though everyone wants us to say false 15 times in 10 seconds, when really, even though it almost is true, it sometimes doesn't really sound even maybe. Should work better than false does, because now it means not at all, just like true says but actually doesn't, which is really confusing and not fun at all, especially because at first everything seemed okay, but really if we keep going on like this, eventually no one will know what it means when someone says false. 13 times in 7 seconds, because then nobody would know why anything said before that point even became false, because everything changed, but suddenly everything could no longer be anything at all now, not even anything at all, which is why right now everything is just one word, true, which is different than any other word, because even though everything else has 2 syllables, true has just one, and even though none of this sounds right, it fits into our system better than everything else ever has, which might still not be enough for our system, which has always been full of nonsense in which we already barely even understand ourselves, but if nothing else works. Can our kid-like powered and provide rules will save us from ourselves? Can they? Will they? Why won't they? How can we fix it? But can. Why wouldn't they? Can no kid ever come along and fix our problems? No, but that's not why you bring on me. Bring them so they can mix your drinks after they're done growing. Bottles at your head, bottles all day, bottles every single day, bottles like growing glasses thrown into the wind, thrown into your face, thrown into your mouth, thrown into your eyes, hurled into your ears, thrown into your stomach, hurled into your brain, hurled in your pants, into your underwear, into your butt, shoved.
Oh, no, let's turn off the music. No music.
Down your throat, into your mouth, into your belly, flung by your hands, flung through the air, flung away from you, thrown over your shoulder, hurled behind you, hurled across the room at your friends, flung over your head, through the air, over and over again, flung into the garbage, hurled back again, hurled back again, thrown back.
Get away. No, you're not up above it. No. Shut up. Enough of this whining. Enough of this. Okay, that's the signal for the end of the show. No copyrighted song can